Hi, everyone. Happy Sunday. Welcome to Conversations with Mai. And today we have a special guest that I'm very interested to interview. We have Miss Mariama Jalloh, otherwise known as MJ. She's someone that's been called a FinTech Leader in Hills. She's a global speaker, strategic advisor, and the founder of FinTech with MJ. MJ has over 2 decades of experience. She has advised and led initiatives for some of the biggest names in global finance, including Goldman Sachs, KPMG, and TD Bank. She currently serves as the program director at the Alliance for Innovative Regulation, AIR. She helps to bridge the gap between innovators and regulators. And so MJ's mission is clear. Her mission is to empower entrepreneurs and scale sustainable tech startups in emerging markets, especially across the African continent. She's also the author of the upcoming book, Maximum Viable Product, a guide for founders building beyond the minimum. So please welcome MJ to the show. Thank you for joining us. Thank you for coming on. Do you have any opening remarks you'd like to make at this time?
No, thank you. Thank you for having me. I'm really looking forward to the conversation, just offline some of the conversations that you and I have, and just knowing that all the work that I'm putting in regards to my platform, FinTech with MJ, and the work that I'm doing in the continent, there's so much synergy between what it is that I'm doing, and you've been so supportive. So thank you so much, Maya, for having me on the show today.
You're welcome. You're welcome. Okay, so we are getting started. So the first question I do want to ask is about your origin, your story. So you have a fascinating background, right? From your Sierra Leonean heritage to building a 2 decade career at the highest levels of global finance. How does your personal journey shape your professional mission to build and scale fintech in Africa?
So, like you said, first generation born Sierra Leonean in these United States of America. And one of the things that just growing up, my parents have always instilled in me that Africa's home. Like, while we may have been born in this country, um, it is imperative that we understand that where home is. And so I've instilled that in my three boys as well. I've built a corporate career that has spanned 20 plus decades. One point of correction, I'm no longer with the Alliance for Innovative Regulation. I actually have stepped out on my own now, just taking a gamble on me, and knowing that I'm very passionate about the work that I'm doing, and knowing that there's a need. But to really just kind of talk about my path, working in corporate America, I have seen, I've always been the only woman in a room, the only Black person in a room. And as my dad likes to remind me from time to time, I would be the only Muslim in the room. And so I noticed from working with investment banks how they move when it comes to capital in certain spaces. I had a recent project with the minority depository institutions. They are the minority owned banks. And, they received a lot of funding to assist them with um, increasing their technical capabilities. And so what I found was those smaller banks, smaller minority owned banks, um, they had issues with capital. And I've sat in both spectrums. I've sat in rooms with HSBC, and I've sat in rooms with Goldman Sachs, and I see how deals are being made and done. And then I've sat on the other spectrum where I'm working with the smaller community banks and seeing how there's a struggle for capital in order to keep up their technical capabilities. And then I was fortunate enough for my organization to send me back in 2024 to not just Ghana, but Nigeria and Rwanda. And in these conferences, I definitely heard the rhetoric of Africa being an emerging market. And so that term kind of didn't sit well with me. It's a new frontier. Your new customers will be in the continent. We all know about the statistics. And so essentially I walked away from a lot of those conferences feeling like there has to be some sort of way that I can assist to be able to ensure that the growth that is happening in our countries, in the 54 countries of the continent, that there are companies that have the necessary capital and are owned by people that look like us. And so that's where the entire thought process of FinTech with MJ, that's where the consulting, it all came from.
Excellent, excellent. Thank you for that. So we're going to move on now to talk about what I call the big picture. And so you're on the ground floor of the African fintech ecosystem. I see you. You're always in Nigeria, Ghana, Rwanda. You're always speaking, presenting, educating, doing all these great things. For our listeners who may not be familiar, what is the single biggest misconception the world has about innovation in Africa? And what's the single biggest opportunity you think there is there?
Yeah, so when you think about innovation in Africa, you have to understand that I think the biggest misconception is that, especially when it comes to funding, right, that there's an expectation that we're copying Western models, or a solution has to look like something that's built in the West or in the European markets. Because if it works in Western and European markets, of course it has to work in Africa. Well, that's not the case. That is one of the biggest misconceptions when you think about just innovation as a whole. When you're looking at building solutions, you have to think deeply about the local issues on the ground. What's happening in Rwanda, what's happening in South Africa, what's happening in Sierra Leone are not the same. There's a misconception that, when you think of Africa, Africa's one big market. It absolutely is not. It's 54 different markets, 54 different regulators, for 54 different policies and laws, right? And, the consumers tend to move differently. So that's a big misconception, that a tool that works in the US or London or in Greece will work in Africa. And so that's one of the biggest ones. What I am seeing right now, what I see the biggest opportunity is just an untapped demand and creativity for problem solving across the 54 markets. Like, the biggest opportunity is an individual being able to, or solutions being able to connect the 54 markets. That is a major problem at the current moment that needs to be solved. I tell the story all the time. A lot of people don't know this, that if I was in Freetown right now and I needed to send money to Kumasi in Ghana, there's no way that I could just use an intermediary or a payment system that would get the money, that would take my leones and transfer them into the Ghana CD. It's not going to happen that easily, I should say. What will happen is I would take my leones, find an intermediary. They would then trade my leones to either British pound sterling or to the US dollar, and then convert it into the Ghana CD. A lot of people don't know that. So when that happens, essentially, like, there are fees that are being collected off of those transmissions. So anyone who can come up with a solution that resolves this, and I don't want to make it seem like solutions are not on the market right now. There are a few. but the use cases or the solutions are not widely used at the moment. So anyone that's able to solve for those, the interconnecting of the 54 markets there's a huge opportunity there.
Excellent. Excellent. Thank you. That was really great and insightful for those of us who don't know. Like I would never think what you said happened, as far as like the money transfer or that type of thing exists, right? Like that's that's frustrating.
It is. And if I tell you the amount of fees that are being made outside of the continent for those type of transfers, you're looking at anywhere between $4 to $5 billion a year.
Oh my goodness.
Well, imagine if that could stay within the continent. It's just,
Yeah.
there's so much leakage in cash. We'll get to it as we continue to talk.
Definitely. Oh my goodness. Okay, so let's talk about infrastructure versus interoperability. So you wrote a great piece on your blog about interoperability, interoperability, I'm getting tongue-tied, or infrastructure being the next frontier. Which do you believe is the more urgent priority for Africa's digital economy to truly scale, and why?
Well, let me first say thank you for reading my blog.
No, you have very interesting pieces on there. I mean,
Thank you. Yeah, I try to make them be as digestible as possible because, like I just mentioned, a lot of people don't know until you like get this information. It makes the light bulb go off in your head, and then we can start thinking about solutions to kind of bridge the gap. But infrastructure versus interoperability, to be honest with you, they go hand in hand. You have to understand the importance of just the intersection of the two. And to be honest with you, the intersection of infrastructure and interoperability is the key to unlocking like the trade among the 54 countries. When we think about big Pan-African movements, and my idol right now that I have been studying and reading autobiographies and his speeches. In fact, when I was in Ghana, my team gave me this book because every time I speak, I always talk about Kwame Nkrumah. I don't know if you can see it, but this is a book of his speeches. And, we have to figure out ways to unlock the market. And so the need for infrastructure and interoperability will unlock about $1 trillion in trade within the continent as a whole. Right? That's a lot of money. That's $1 trillion that can contribute to the GDP of all the African countries if we can figure out an easier way to trade among ourselves. So the interoperability argument, that has to be tackled regionally first. Like, it's impossible for us to get. I mean, like I said, there are instances of them working on this with PAPS, the Pan-African Payment Settlement System, that's been around for some time. But only 17 countries are onboarded, and the use case is very limited. It is supply chain. However, if we can tackle this interoperability by region, starting with East Africa, so all of East Africa, and so let me take a step back when we talk about interoperability. It is payment systems that can really talk to one another. There's different protocols. Think about Visa versus MasterCard. They're not on the same payment rail. So if we can figure out a way where instead of me sending money through the US exchange or the British exchange, we put these rails together that create that interoperability, we can, again, unlock trillions of dollars, right? It makes it a lot easier for Kenya to trade with South Africa, or Sierra Leone to trade with Nigeria. It makes it much easier because when you order goods from me, you can easily give me my payment and it's almost instant. I receive my funds. Currently, that's a very difficult task. So interoperability, they both go hand in hand. And when we think about the infrastructure, without reliable broadband, without consistent energy sources, without identity systems where, I think about it. A lot of the countries don't have a lot of their citizens on an ID system. Well, if you don't have an ID, it's very difficult for you to get into the financial system. You can't open up a bank account. No one's going to open up a bank account with you if you don't have an ID. And I think we have these Western ideals, and it's like, oh yeah, you have to have an ID. No, not everyone does. Most, you'll find some places in rural parts of the countries that don't have IDs. And why don't they have IDs? Some are at-home births. So you don't even have a registration of your birth, which is the first starting point. So there are solutions right now. There are tech companies out there that are trying to solve for that, where they're using biometrics to be able to verify who a person is. Again, this is the ingenuity of the continent, where they're figuring out how to solve for that problem. So the digital identity system needs to be resolved. The secure payment switches, the regulatory frameworks, the seamless payments, that all needs to be addressed. That's all part of the infrastructure. So you can see they go hand in hand.
Absolutely, absolutely. I agree with you. As you know, I'm in a global affairs master's program, and I did a paper on trade in West Africa. And one of the challenges that I outlined in the paper was the lack of the infrastructure, like lack of development, right? Because it does go hand in hand, and being able to seamlessly trade between even the region, right? Because of issues of like not having standardized procedures, not streamlining certain procedures and things like that. So definitely get that. That was a great explanation, by the way. Okay, great. So let's talk about the maximum viable product. Like I stated earlier, I'm sorry.
I was saying that's my baby.
Aw. I'm excited to read it. So you're writing a book called Maximum Viable Product, right? It's a great twist on the MVP concept. So what is the biggest mistake you see early stage founders in emerging markets making when they try to build and scale?
Yeah, so it's twofold. I would say, in regards to the pitching, it's the story. You have to be a good storyteller. You have to be able to be very clearly tell me what problem you're solving for and how your solution is going to solve for it. And then when looking at the product, like the MVP is just as a prototype, you have to be able to show investors rather than just a product that can actually deliver, right? And so back in October when I was in Lagos, I sponsored Afro Pitch, and we received over 30 different entries. They all submitted their pitch decks. And when I tell you, I was extremely impressed with the solutions. I've received pitch decks for solutions in agriculture, agri-tech that included traceability of a particular produce all the way to it being created into a product and being shipped overseas. I received a pitch deck on a young man who created a SIM card that once embedded inside of a kid's smartphone, they can't go searching the web and looking at things that are not age appropriate. And while people think about that solutions like that actually exist, my kids were, we used to have something from Verizon. Trust me, it was not as thorough as this particular tool that this gentleman pitched. And got a lot of traction after just being in the market for 1 month. He got over 900 children on the app with no marketing or what have you. I also, a young lady in health tech pitched a idea called Hey Mama. And essentially she's solving for to decrease the mortal birth rate when mothers are giving birth. From preeclampsia, there's sugar going up all through the phone. This is all being done through the smartphone. and it's more geared towards individuals, mothers that are living in rural areas. So, I tell people this all the time. There's a reason why these big tech companies like Google and Microsoft are out in the continent. It's not because they want to be philanthropists. Let's be very, very clear. They're not giving this money like Google gave $37 million. Google is not giving $37 million because they believe in Africa. Sorry, Google. They are given $37 million because they want to be able to follow the data. They want the data. They want to be able to see how it is that we're able to solve and create solutions where we're not on using smartphone protocols, because a lot of the folks in the continent have flip phones that use a different protocol than what is in the smartphone. So these founders are building tech solutions that work on those old phones. That's one. Okay. Secondly, we're building when the infrastructure isn't working. So their apps are still working even though the internet isn't working. Now you imagine you trying to get on Instagram and the internet, you can't connect to the Wi-Fi, or your cellular services isn't working. Is it going to work for you? Right. So these founders have figured out, they're solving and creating solutions even though the infrastructure isn't as robust as it is in, the States or Europe or other parts of the world. So that's the information that Google is after. How are you all thriving and being able to build these robust solutions with the bare minimum? So the MVP Plus goes into being able to say, okay, these prototypes have to go above and beyond. You have to be able to solve. You can't do a typical prototype and put that out as an MVP. You need to be able to go above and beyond and make sure that your solution, your MVP model, is actually going to test what it is your solution is solving, and also be able to ensure that you capture that user, because we're all fickle. If I try to use it and the first feature that I'm expecting to work doesn't work, you've already lost me. And it's a strong possibility that I won't come back. So I talk a little bit about that in the book. So
That's
yeah,
great.
you have to be able to make sure that you're telling a proper story, and your story is compelling enough. And also make sure that when you're telling your story, that there is a level of urgency. Like if I have to pick between 5 different solutions, and your solution is not as pressing, but someone else's solution is going to solve something right now that is pressing, I'm going to select that solution over the first one.
Absolutely, absolutely. This is great. Wow. And I'm just really impressed with, the solutions that were presented. And, this just goes back to how, folks always say Black people, Africans, that we're just naturally creative. And many times we can do so much with the bare minimum,
Thank
right?
you.
So
Absolutely.
that's very impressive. Wow. So let's talk about fintech for the people. So your work focuses on the informal economy, and so I would like to know, how can technology and digital finance create real tangible value for a market vendor or smallholder farmer? What are the most exciting examples you're seeing of this, since you're on the ground, in West Africa a lot?
Yeah, so we got to think about the fact that what I talked about earlier about the fact that if you don't have an ID, that you're not able to participate in the financial systems. And when you find yourself in that situation as a um, small market woman, or small, you work in a marketplace and you want to be able to get inventory, you aren't even eligible for microloans, because you're either unbanked or underbanked. And so I push financial inclusion. Financial inclusion, if people don't really understand what that means, what that could possibly mean for a small vendor or for a farmer, it unlocks capital in a way that can increase your bottom line in so many different ways. If you're locked out of the financial system, you can only use the money that is coming in, and say something happens to your crops and you're a small leaseholder farmer, and something happens to your crop. You were anticipating receiving funds for those particular crops, and then some uh, uh, insect or pest comes in and wipes that crop out. Essentially, you don't have any money to put back into your business. And so it's really important when we talk about financial inclusion, especially when we talk about small vendors and farmers, that they be included into the system. And so the informal economy, the Okada driver, the Uber driver, there are ways that, you know, they can utilize, get tools that allow them to be funded, so that they can be able to scale up in a way. Um, the other thing is, when you think about the digital finance, it really does it reduces friction. So it's faster and cheaper remittances. So a person get paid much quicker. As I mentioned earlier, it's access to credit just based on transaction history. And then this is simpler ways to save. I have talked to a few people. When you asked me about what I'm seeing on the ground, I've seen a couple of people actually digitize susu, and susus are very it's a known way, a savings vehicle mechanism that's used throughout the world. So Africans, I'm not even sure, we probably invented it, and then just that sense of savings, um, rotational savings, is something that I've seen digitized and work in a way that has really been helpful. I know of a founder in Ghana who is actually building iSusu, where those payments are actually going to build credit history. Now, that's something that I find very commendable.
Thank you. So this is good because I thought I saw um an ad, I believe it was on Instagram for Susu. I saw something or someone like shared on social media, but I didn't get the time to really, read and learn about it. But I remember thinking, oh wow, that's pretty cool. That's happening. So because when I think about Susu, I'm still thinking about the savings, like they gather the money and they share it and things like that.
Right. It's the
So
same concept.
right. So can you just tell me a little bit more? It is the same concept, right? So I guess but someone obviously is managing the
Yes. Yeah. So essentially, what happens with the app is that you attach either your bank information, or whether it's in that part of the world, money, mobile money,
right.
and you go in, you put everyone, you name your group, you put everyone who is part of that Susu group in. Everyone gets their number, so they know their draw, they know their contribution, and every month you're required to put that money upload that money, what be it, like, think about Venmo or Cash App or what have you. You put that money up into the app, and the owner of the app actually has it stored in a financial institution.
Yeah.
And then from there, when payments are made, the app automatically makes the payments out, right? And so as you're making those payments, they are building a credit history for you. They're creating a credit file for you. And so it shows that you've been part of this Susu group for 12 months, and you've been contributing $100 every month, and you've never missed your payment. That builds credit history.
Wow, that's great. That's great. I have a lot more to ask you, but I did want to dig in a little bit more because in one of my classes, I believe this one was where I developed a plan to Oh, I did some research. God, I've done so many papers in the past year. I did some research on, okay, I remember I did a paper on the impact of finance, of fintech on, African women, West African women, of course, like particularly the traders. And, it did show, there's data that showed that it's empowering them, and, you know, it's enabling them to trade more and more efficiently and effectively. But one of the things that came up was that the adoption piece of it, right? Like, because it's hard to change, any culture. But I know, like with us, there's still things that I do where, and I grew up here, and I'm sure you were born here, but there's still things we took from our parents or beliefs or things that we do where it's like, okay, girl. So like that, like how has that been, trying to get folks to understand, like fintech or apps like Susu? What do you think about that? Like, how is that going, to adoption rate and all of that?
Yeah, so it's a couple. That's such a good question, Ramona, and it's a layered question, right? Because every person or every part of the ecosystem has to play well together in order for adoption to take place. Um, a couple of things. So any app that you put together, and that goes back to what I was saying about the maximum viable product and not a minimal viable product, has to build trust. I cannot. I'm used to doing my Susu, and we're doing it rotational without having any technology involved. I have to be very, very comfortable and understand the fact that I'm about to move on to this platform, and what does that mean? So that means the platform has to be very simplistic for me to be comfortable with it. It has to work at any given time. I need to be able to check balances so that I can have a level of comfortability to trust. So you have to build trust. Secondly, I did a roundtable when I was in Ghana at 3i Africa last year, and we pulled together the telcos, the regulators, the solution providers, and one of the things that we kept talking about was financial literacy. When you're talking about launching a fintech, you cannot just make sure that this tool is only in English. We talked about making sure that tools have in the tool so that everyone understands it. Am I still there? Oh,
Hello?
Mike, can you hear me?
I can hear you. Continue.
Okay.
Okay, yes.
I think I went out for a second.
Okay, yes.
Are you there?
I'm here. Or is it me that went out? Okay. Can you hear me?
Okay. I don't know. So yeah, so there has to be a level of trust, financial literacy, and languages that that are local, and a dialect that the user understands, and then also the regulators. The regulators play a big part as well, making sure that one of the major mandates of all financial regulators is consumer protection. So making sure that that there are no bad actors, or if they are, that they're caught fairly early. And so that's why I said there's parts of the ecosystem that have to play well together in
Right.
order for adoption to take place.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So you can hear me, right?
Yeah, I can.
Okay, good. No, that was good. I'm so glad you talked about that, because I had said that I was going to share that paper with you. I've just been so busy. It was just really interesting, the research I did, and just kind of talk about it with you, because I'm not in the fintech world. You know. Okay, great. So you've called embedded finance a survival strategy in these markets. Can you explain what that means and how it's different from buy now, pay later apps we see in the West?
Yeah. So in mature markets like what you see in the West, you'll find embedded finance. It kind of shows up as just as convenience, right? Buy now, pay later at checkout, a loan offer inside of your shopping app. In our markets, embedded finance is more often about survival. And so you'll see a small business in Lagos, Accra, or Freetown, and they don't wake up saying, I need a loan product, right? They wake up saying, as if I'm a market woman, I need inventory. I need fuel if I'm a Okada driver or a Uber driver, or I need to pay my staff. So think about embedded finance in the continent. It you know, it's not will force you to go looking for or hunt for credit and building a 10-page form. It brings the right financial tool. And so embedded finance could be way that I can assist you on MTC's normal money, just like the big money transfer. There may be some comes up point and not just for consumption.
Okay. I don't know if it's your internet or my internet that I try to turn off the
yeah, I think you saw that it kept.
Yeah. I try to turn off the my phone's the service. Okay. All right. So we'll continue. Okay. So I think we missed the last part of what you said. I'm sorry. It was going in and out.
Oh no, I was so I was saying that the difference between the buy now, pay later model doesn't really work in a continent just yet. I know there was a company, and forgive me, I can't remember the name of it, that actually adopted that particular model. They were based in Kenya, and it actually wound up closing after I think maybe 2 or 3 years because they were so highly leveraged, trying to cover the expense that they couldn't survive. So when you think about embedded finance within the continent, it's more around making sure that once you've gone through like a Momo money, which is their mobile money, that there may be an offer to be able to, if you were an Uber driver and they see that you've consistently been able to provide, you've consistently been sending money, and they can verify that you are an Uber driver, they may give you an advance for gas, like a small micro loan. But they know exactly, they know exactly how to be able to recoup funds in that space. So that's more of the embedded finance model when you think in the continent, not the buy now, pay later. I just don't think that we're ready for it just yet.
Right. Okay, great. So let's talk about the regulator's role. You work directly with the regulators you worked with regulators at the Alliance for Innovative Regulation. Historically, innovators and regulators are seen as adversaries. How are you working to change that? And why is supervisory tech, so critical for stable growth? Can you hear me? I think I might be out. Can you hear me? Let me connect with my phone.
Okay, there we go.
Okay, so is it me?
I can. So you were asking me about suit tech and just the regulation.
Right.
I think it is.
I think it is me. I'm trying. Okay, let me turn off.
But no worries. Yeah. It's technology, honey. This is what
Yes.
it does. Let me turn mine off too.
Yeah, I'm trying to turn off all the other devices. So yeah, so did you get what I asked about? I mentioned that you did some work with regulators at the Alliance for Innovative Regulation, and I was talking about historically how innovators and regulators are seen as adversaries, right? A lot of times,
Yeah.
the regulators are behind, right? Or there's so much red tape that it's hard to innovate. So how are you working to change that, and why is super tech such a so critical for stable growth? Sorry.
Yeah. So I've always said, I mean, everyone knows this, that too much regulation stifles innovation. Um, there are markets that are thriving because they have embraced emerging technology. They take the time to understand emerging technology and they're not afraid of emerging technology, such as blockchain, such as artificial intelligence. In order for regulators to do their job well, they have to understand these emerging technologies because the companies and financial institutions that they're overseeing are actually utilizing it. So, at my time at AIR, I've seen that regulators and they really don't want to be the enemy of innovation. It's just them making sure that they have a full understanding and a level of comfortability with emerging technology. So, and then you'll find that regulators sometimes are often under resourced and sometimes overwhelmed. So, imagine trying to supervise a rapidly evolving digital economy that has tools that you're just not familiar with. It becomes very so the immediate response would be, okay, stop. You can't utilize this technology. We're not going to let you. That's where you'll find there's the disconnect in regard to innovation and the regulatory bodies. Suits regulators have sandboxes, and they allow tech companies to come in and play around in the sandbox to see whether a regulatory policy how it's going to affect them. So it means using data, analytics, increasingly AI to monitor some of the risk in real time. But they have to be on top of it because technology moves so quickly. It moves very, very quickly. And we're finding a lot of global regulators opening up innovation offices, and that shows you that is a great move. So I just read Bloomberg's investment guide to Africa. I actually did a blog on this, right? And one of the things that they don't talk about is how the regulators are actually they're starting to come around in regards to the innovation offices, right?
Yes.
And that should be applauded and noted as well. So
Yeah.
is this a level of making sure that any regulatory bodies that come in that they have a good understanding of the technology that's being used by these companies? Stablecoin, cryptocurrency, they're not going anywhere. The sooner we get our African regulators get comfortable with these forms of payment. Like for instance, I was talking to some folks in Ghana, and Ghana actually just put out their cryptocurrency regs. But while I was out there, the regs hadn't put out, and they were anticipating and just waiting for the policy to be released. And I was talking to one of the founders, and the founder said to me, they were following up because Ghana has changed over administrations at the beginning of the year. And the previous administration had already drafted the regs and it was supposed to be passed and what have you, but it didn't. So they just knew it was going to be delayed severely. So this founder is talking to like one of the regulators and some of the folks in Parliament, and they're like, "Oh yeah, are you talking about that money laundering app? I mean, the money laundering policy. So that's how they. It's okay.
I think. Are you sure it's not you? Because I've turned off all my devices over here.
No, it wasn't me because guess what? I was still live and you were gone. I'm looking at some of these comments in here. I was like,
Because I
okay, well,
placed it, I put an icon from the stage. So now I
oh,
told Zizi to turn. I turned off all the phones, the internet, and I told Zizi to stop watching TV. It's
yeah,
connected to the internet.
I'm looking at the comments. Somebody's upstate
Right.
souls. Worry Almami said, hello, Lady MJ. And then he
Yeah.
said, Africa is not a country. I agree. Africa is a continent made up
Yeah,
of
he was responding to what you said earlier. I know I had haven't paused for the comments. Thanks
yeah,
for joining us, mommy.
yep. Right. You
Okay,
know how many times we have to remind people of that? They
I
act as
know.
if Africa is a monolithic society.
Right. It's so different, even in the regions and things like that.
Mhm.
I know that was good when you were talking about the regulator's role. One of the things that I learned in my program from doing research was that now it's changed a bit where governments are forming, I forgot the term, but they're like hubs or whatever, right? With different stakeholders, the innovators, the citizens, the government folks, the big companies. Everybody is working together for transparency and for efficiency and making sure regulations are in place. So that was very interesting. Okay, so let's talk about investing in Africa. In another post, I read your post. you said um, you said Africa doesn't need conquerors; it needs partners. What is the critical difference between an investor and a partner when it comes to foreign capital?
Yeah. So I talked about this a little bit earlier, right? Um, where I said, I just Bloomberg is probably about a week and a half now that they have put out this investor report for Africa. And I think they focused on 19 different countries that hit certain markers. You know what? Maybe it is me. Okay. And so when you think about investing in the continent, they there's a huge difference. An investor is what I say is they're looking on return on community. They're going in to make sure that they're providing capital. They're not just providing capital, but they're providing capacity building. There's too many, and that's one example. There's too many government contracts that are given out to these Chinese and European conglomerates. They come in, we don't even negotiate to say, okay, you should have nothing but Nigerian staff that you go in and you train. And this is the reason why when they're gone, our citizens aren't able to maintain a particular role, for example, because the capacity building wasn't there. It makes us now rely if their road gets messed up or it needs to be maintained, we have to go back to the Chinese contractor that we gave the contract to. So a conqueror model looks like they come in, they extract value quickly, they own everything, they keep decision making far from the market, and they treat local players as labor and not as a designer. They're not a partner. A partner model is different. It respects local ownership and invests in talent, builds up that capacity. They know to utilize local talent on the ground. They build structures where value circulates within our ecosystem, within our economy. And it's not just that they're headquartered abroad. So those are the main differences between an investor and a partner. For foreign capital, it just shifts. It's just things around. It means that you really need to back local teams. You need to not just bring in, executives from out of the country or, from some other space. You need to be able to align your time horizon, your expectations with what the reality is on the ground. And I feel like too many times we hear these stories of these big conglomerates going into these countries, and the only one that's benefiting is them.
Absolutely. I do want to follow up. I do have a follow-up question with that, but my dad is on and he was saying the conversation is good, but the what is it? The connection keeps freezing. So so what I did just now was I just connected through one of my phones. So maybe it was this connection. Hopefully it's better now.
Gotcha.
Sorry for that, guys. This is very interesting stuff. So yeah, so I do want to ask, like,
Uncle Yazzie.
He's one of my loyal fans.
Of course he is, Daddy's girl.
He and Mommy, they're always here. I can always count on those two people. But wait, so okay, so what is the trend? What are you seeing, right? As far as like the partners, like more partnerships, right? Like with these like big companies or even smaller companies in Africa. Do you think like things are changing? Like are governments demanding more of that? What do you think?
Ooh, this is a very loaded question, man.
I told you I was excited about this.
All right, so let me give you the real. The real is that these conglomerates absolutely see that they can make their next $1 billion in Africa, right? Think about the trade wars that's happening right now with all these tariffs. The U.S. is somewhat a market that is being closed out by a lot of people. I mean, by the policies of this current administration. And so they're figuring out ways to diversify their funds. So yes, they are definitely looking at Africa. And as I was saying almost 2 years ago, I'm sitting in these big conferences and Microsoft and Google and they're there. They are talking about how this is an emerging market and how they need to get on the grounds and make sure that they have a foothold in the continent some way, somehow. Now, there are certain countries that are exemplarized. They are moving in a way where they have already put policies and laws in place, and you can't do anything without you either partnering with a local company or making sure that set-asides are being done. Like Uganda does that very well. Set-aside contracts are done for Ugandans. We're going to do everything we possibly can to enable our people to get these government contracts. And when they are may not have the necessary capital to move in this place, to take on this contract, we will find a partner that will partner with them to make sure that they have it. That's Uganda's laws. That's what they put those things in place. We need more of our African countries to do that. Absolutely. We have to, because we cannot complain when we get to 2030 or 2050 with the numbers that they are telling us. We cannot complain if we wind up seeing in 2030 or let's go to 2050, when the world is supposed to look vastly different, not just the 54 countries in Africa, the world is supposed to look vastly different. We can't complain if we are now, and I hate to say this is the controversial part, are recolonialized, because we have to put policies in place that put us forth. that enable us to make sure that we are the masters of our fate. We are the ones that are controlling our economies. We cannot continue to let individuals outside of our countries manipulate and move things in a way that are not beneficial to us. So I say this all the time. I'm not an isolationist. I believe in partnership. I believe in strategic partnerships, but you're going to sit at a table that was built by us. You're not coming to this table owning the table. We built it. You sit at the table with us as a partner.
Absolutely. And so I had a friend who is running an institution in Rwanda, and he had wanted me to apply for a position. It was a high level position. And, he was telling me that it might be hard because Rwanda, they have to make sure they look for someone that for a national, someone that's a Rwandan whatsoever before they look outside. And they
Absolutely.
have to, right. He said if they can't find anybody, then, and he said even that it's like it's difficult. You have to prove that they can find anybody. But one thing that I did want to say as you were talking, these conversations obviously are layered, because I think we all know that a lot of the governments, the folks in the government, they know that, right? So that's where, like, for me, that's where the corruption comes in, right? Because and that's why sometimes it's disheartening because you're not looking at the future, right? You're looking typically like about like now, we're short-sighted, right? Like, what can I get now, instead of saying, let me look at the future, and put in these policies, right? Develop these partnerships, and things like that, because there's no excuse. I am sorry. Like, at this point, there's no excuse for foreign nationals to come in these countries and just, like, take over. Just quickly, I was watching Fareed Zakaria today, GPS, and they were talking about all the stuff that's going on, and about some graphs came up, about, like, talking about the countries, about how aid, like, they give all these stats, right, about like the impact of the USAID, how many people died, all these things, right, from not having the aid. But then they also looked at stats where countries, especially Asian countries, right, a lot of them that have really developed, like Singapore and Philippines, how they refused to take aid, right, from the West, and how developed they are. And they had a chart to show that. And then, of course, as usual, as I'm in class, this happens all the time, and folks feel bad. They don't want to look at me. Then they showed the opposite. The countries that got the most aid, Sierra Leone got the most aid and has not made, actually declined, didn't make progress. They had the chart today. Sierra Leone was the first country, and I forgot how much money they said they got in aid. It was like a 5-year period or whatever. And I'm just like, what the heck?
Well, Mamona, it goes into that parable that says, teach a man how to fish, right? You can't keep giving aid to someone. Aid is always tied with its strings attached. I mean, we're not even going to get into the proven reports, because this is not conspiracy, that US aid was used in a way to destabilize a lot of these countries.
Mm-hmm.
We're not going to talk about that, because that becomes very, very tricky. But the fact of the matter is that in some of these countries, and I can talk about Sierra Leone, we all know that there's misappropriation of the funds, right? Well, I shouldn't say we all know. We suspect, allegedly. I don't want to get sued. Allegedly, with a heart, like allegedly with a hard H.
Right.
So aid is a crutch. Aid is not something that is being used to be able to build up a country. It's not, and there's so many studies, and that what you saw this morning just reiterates it, right? There's another thing too that, again, like I said, I'm a student of Kwame Nkrumah, and he talked about in 1948 in one of his books, where he says that we have to be aware, as these countries are coming online and getting their independence from the colonial master, that they are putting in people that are colonial, what was the word he used? Sympathizers.
Mm-hmm.
And you have to ask yourself why, since 1948, when Kwame Nkrumah was pushing Pan-Africanism, that we are in 2025, that we still aren't an industrial nation. A lot of our countries are still not industrialized.
This doesn't make sense.
Exactly. Well, it does. It is by design. It is
Right.
by design. And so I would love for someone to do a study for them to say, how many of our 54 nations have laws and policy in place that favor others and not the citizens? It'll tell you a lot. It will tell you a lot. We can't keep blaming the colonial masters.
That's what I'm saying. Like, I'm tired of that. I'm sorry. Like, at what point are we gonna say, you know what, let's take control of this, right? Like, but then again, it goes back to that selfish nature.
Yeah.
You know, it's a lot, but I had to go there with that. So let's quickly go to the comments. Almami said, "You are right. Colonial design or shark capitalism mindset drains our level of awakening, increases plus have a mind shift in terms of think partnership. Thus, Africa builds capacity and sustained trade. Excuse me." He also says that Dr. Arikana Chichombori and PLO Lumumba are echoing need for consciousness.
Yeah.
Thank you for that.
He's right. It's absolutely needed. I mean, you can't. So let's talk briefly about Sierra Leone. When EBK was in power the first time, we all were very excited. He set up the first diaspora office. He set up an office for attitudinal change. You cannot, in order for you to change the minds of citizens, you have to change the hearts of citizens. Right. You have to have citizens believe in themselves. You have to have citizens believe that it's great to be a Sierra Leonean. Everything that man initially started with, unfortunately, didn't. From my understanding, some of those offices were never properly funded. You know, we were very hopeful, especially when the diaspora office was open. It's like everything that I know, everything that I've learned in Western world, I can take back home. You know, it's home. I want my country to be good. I want my country to be great.
Yeah.
To your point, like, a lot of our leaders are failing us, and you have to change the minds of the citizens. I actually attended the Brookings Institute's latest session on Monday, or I think it was Tuesday, on Africa, and they wouldn't call it an emerging market. That the Africa that we need is now. And one of the things that they talked about was the fact that we can no longer look at our governments anymore. It's the citizens. It is the citizens. It has to be. If we are expecting change, the citizens have to, one, feel that there's hope and start to demand it.
Yeah, absolutely. But then it's like, it's layered, right? Because that's one of the reasons why we were so happy when EBK was in the first time, because we understood that you know, we had to change the way we think, right? Like you said. So that whole, the programs that were placed, the attitudinal change and the Office of Diaspora, those, if they were properly funded and properly implemented, right? Like, that's how you change things, because it takes a long time to change a culture, right? And there's that culture of poverty in Sierra Leone. And the culture, part of the culture of poverty is that, okay, again, that short-sightedness. Okay, I see this right now, like, let me get it, because I don't know if I'm going to have an opportunity to get it again. And that's it, right? That's survival. Right. So for me, I agree, and I wanted to attend that event, but I was at work. I'm so glad you did, but you know, it's true. But how do we do it? That's the thing, right? Like, how do we do it? Because a lot of people are still relaxed, and I know my mom said years ago, and I never forgot. She said corruption is at every level. Because when she went back, she was running an office, a registrar, and she noticed even the clerks were breaking machines so they can get money from folks to go and you come in, you say, oh, I need this. It's urgent, right? I got to travel, whatever. I need this document. Oh, the machine is broken. Here's some money. Give me some money. I'll run down and go print it for you. And then one of the clerks told her one day that we are breaking, because my mom was like, what's going on? We're always fixing these machines. And I remember she said corruption is at the lowest level. Even with the kids, I hate to say this in Sierra Leone, like the last time I went to Sierra Leone, I saw it, even from people from the diaspora, I saw like everyone, I felt like everyone was trying to get over me, that I was trying to do something with.
And it doesn't make good at all, does
it? And that was the sad thing, because it's like, damn, this is the culture. How can we move forward with that type of mentality? There's no way.
Well, it is. So the tone at the top, like that's one of the things that they taught me when I was a former accounting major, wink, wink, until I switched over to finance. But that's one of the things that they tell you is the tone at the top, right? If the tone at the top, if the boss says, they first of all, they feel comfortable because they probably seen someone at the top actually encourage that type of behavior.
Right.
When that person comes in and they say, and they recognize immediately that these things are happening, and they say, no nonsense, this is not going to be done on my watch.
Right.
Everything starts to straighten up.
Yes.
It's the tone at the top. Now that's how you deal with the government. In regards to the citizens themselves, it's a level of education, NGOs, the work that NGOs do. I don't know, we're a patriarchal type of society, but women lead the charge. Women are the ones that are responsible for the children. So you educate the woman, you get an understanding of the level of self-identity and understanding that this is the way forward, and they start to shape the minds of the children as well as the level of education. So I think about when we were in school. I never really understood this until I got a little bit older. When I went to Sierra Leone the first time, and I was just watching how people were dangerously crossing the street, and I was like, we don't cross the street like this in the States, but I mean, okay, that's just the States. But why do we not cross like that in the States? From the time we were old enough so that kids could be safe and not run out in the street, we were in elementary school and there were campaigns. Cross at the crosswalk. Know what a zebra is, right? Education is a big part of it. There's campaigns in the 80s, say no to drugs. Drugs are bad for you. Everybody remembers cracking the egg in the frying pan. This is your brain. This is your brain. Those things, those campaigns are highly effective, and they work.
Yes. I absolutely agree, but I still think that these things, they're not happening because the government, the administrations that have come in, they don't want it to happen. They know these things. That's what I'm saying, Mariama. Like, they know this work. They're not invested in that. And what I've noticed, particularly with Sierra Leone, is a lot of things are performative, right? A lot of it, and sometimes and one of the things that I had to pull back from, like, because I was always ready to help, and because I always felt guilty, like you said, I felt like I've done all this great stuff. I used to get emotional and cry about it. Like, I'm like, I've worked at all these departments. I've done all this change, and I want to do it for Sierra Leone. I was ready to
go back, and you're like, you easily, because you're a process person like me. Why are they doing it like this? They should be doing it.
I go crazy in Sierra Leone.
Yeah.
I went off in a bank because of a process issue. My dad said, oh, no, something to do with whatever. I remember, like, I always say, like, the bank manager is still my friend, and he had to take me to the back. Because you're right. So my brain thinks like that. And even though when I go, I say, okay, I talk to myself, but it's like, sometimes it's extreme and I just can't stand it. You know what I'm saying? Like, so for me, again, it's like, if they want to do it, it can be done. Yeah. That's where I'm at now. But I'm gonna try to be hopeful again. But let me move on.
I think we're past the time of being hopeful, to be honest with you.
What should I be? Because it's sad that I feel the way I feel. It makes me sad because I feel like I've given up, and it breaks my heart because I'm just like, dang.
There are ways. Like, I'll be honest with you. Everything that I'm doing right now is that I'm taking my hopefulness and I'm actually putting it in action. Right. Start small. We already know that the governments can be very difficult to work with. That's why I'm saying it's the citizens. Work with the
Right.
citizens.
But I
I
mean, to be fair, you can't compare. When I'm talking about Sierra Leone, maybe I should be more specific. Like,
I,
yes, things are moving, even though I know you know it's difficult. But
I
like,
know.
I'm sorry, like Ghana and Nigeria stuff. I mean, and the people,
Like, it's not a cakewalk either there.
it's
So
not. I know.
and Sierra Leone is a beast of its own. And to be honest with you, I mean, I don't want to be crucified by my people. I will get there. I'm not
Yes,
starting there. I feel
that's
like
where I'm at.
to get traction
Right.
elsewhere and have more. There are some things in the continent that I would like to
Yeah.
do. I mean, sorry, in Sierra Leone that I have my eye on, but
Right.
I am working in other markets right now just because it's a lot easier to move things and do things.
Right.
But my ultimate goal is to take what it is that I'm doing in Ghana, Nigeria, and Rwanda to Sierra Leone. I mean,
Right.
it's
Right.
an opportunity now that I'm trying right now to create for myself. Like I just need to be put in front of the right person.
Right.
I'll be honest, man.
Yeah. But that's what that's exactly what I did, because to be honest with you, like I feel like, and maybe this is a midlife crisis, I'm just evaluating my life right now, and I spent a lot of time working on proposal work, like I did a lot background stuff that people don't even realize with regards to Sierra Leone while I was here.
Mhm.
And I just feel like, okay, I had to re-strategize, right? And so what I said a few years ago was, hey, I'm going to start focusing on these other countries, these markets that are easier to access. I have connections there that would be willing to support me. And then I always said it though, I was like, okay, then I can go to Sierra Leone, because for me, it's less of a risk to invest my time and my resources, right, in
Yeah,
other markets. I mean, that's what I'm saying, because
I agree.
before it was, oh, I want to, like, and it's
Yeah,
like I had to get real with myself. That's
yeah,
what I
yeah.
yeah.
They don't make it easy for us. They
Yeah.
don't. We want to help. We want to go back.
Yeah.
And we do plan on going back. Um,
Yeah.
at the Sierra Leone Development Investment Conference,
Yes, yes.
Asper Investment Conference done by Vicky Rameau. A lot of the entrepreneurs that are doing pretty well who
Mhm.
spoke, they warned us or forewarned us that it's best to go out there and get your business up and running and not necessarily get the government involved.
Mhm.
They are an obstacle. They can be an obstacle. And then
Mhm.
let's face it, it's not just Sierra Leoneans, but a lot Nigerians do this as well as
Yeah.
Ghanaians. You have to get traction somewhere else for you to come back now and show that this is a qual. Well, I
Right.
did. I worked with 30 founders in Nigeria, and I was able to secure X amount of
Yes.
millions for them. And so I want to come and do the same program here with you all.
Right.
Uh, you know, that I
Yes.
feel like I would be better received when I've gotten those numbers and that traction, and I've been doing this for some time. And then they can say, okay, you know what? This is one of our sisters. She means well. Let's see what we can do, maybe. But that's
No, that I mean, that makes sense. And some of my goals. So,
Mhm.
hopefully, not hopefully. Let me stop. I believe, but then it's just hard. But yeah, hopefully, I can.
That's going to be my new word. Hopefully, you know why? Because
Hopefully.
I did Afro Talks in Lagos, and I ended my speech
Mm.
by saying that we all heard our parents say that, and maybe in their lifetime, that Sierra Leone will be better. I mean, you hear it from Nigerians too. You hear it from
Mhm.
Ghanaians.
Yeah, yeah.
Lifetime, okay? Then they change and they say, maybe in my children's lifetime, maybe
Mhm.
my children will be able to benefit. Now here I am, about to be 50 with 3 grown men. And I'm like, damn, do I even see it being ready in a place of um, abundance and growth for even my children? But
Mhm.
our thought process has to be a little bit different. We have to figure out ways to make sure that it doesn't pass our generation.
My thing is, I was going to say this earlier. I, from the bottom of my heart, believe women are the ones that are going to change that country.
Yeah, absolutely.
I believe that for a long time.
Absolutely.
And I think women, whether it's from the diaspora, from there, but I believe, you know, us coming together, we can actually make a difference.
I'm with
That-
you. I
yeah.
agree. We
Okay.
are, Mother Africa. This says mother for a reason.
Yeah.
We are the alpha and omega. We are the beginning of this. It really does begin and end with us. To be honest with you,
Hmm.
um, yeah.
Yeah. This conversation gets.
Get deep, right?
But I know I got two more questions. I know I've kept you, but this is so good. Okay, so let's talk about your personal drive. You're obviously very driven and very ambitious, and have accomplished a lot. So you're a podcast host, a speaker, an advisor, director, and an author. Well, CEO actually, an author. You're clearly driven, as I mentioned. By more than just technology, right? What gets you out of bed every single morning to do this work?
Yeah, so my three boys, Aliyu, Amir, and Nasir, are my why. I've just had a conversations with one of my girlfriends that, when I was younger, I aspired to have that big house and nice fancy car and, multiple properties. Those things don't really move me anymore. I like to live comfortably. I like to live a luxurious life on how I define luxury. I like to live comfortable.
Yes.
I do still have aspirations of, having, those luxury items here and there, but it's not what moves me. The legacy that I'm leaving behind for my children, for them to
Absolutely.
be 10 times better than me is what pushes me. That's what really drives me, to be very honest with you. When I'm gone, that my grandkids and my great grandkids that maybe I may be fortunate enough to meet, maybe not, that they are still generationally ahead of me. I'm
Absolutely.
fortunate for the parents that I have, because when I tell you that they made sure that me, my brothers, and my uh, pseudo sisters, my cousins that live with us, that we went to school, we didn't want for anything.
Mhm.
Um, they made sacrifices that to this day, I make sure that I pay that forward with my kids.
Mhm. Mhm.
I'm driven by my legacy, the legacy I want to leave behind. I'm driven by the responsibility that I know I have, that people like me with my experience and access to engage with those, be a connector for those individuals,
Mhm.
um, be able to give back to the continent in a way that they are benefiting from my skill set, and
Yes.
I'm a giver and not a taker.
Yes.
Um, and I'm driven by just the possibility. You said something earlier, and I say this all the time. We, as Black people, whether we're in Africa, whether we're in a diaspora, whether we're Black American, we have historically taken the little bit that we have and turned it into something amazing. Now imagine if these founders had the necessary capital and the business acumen to be able to do what they need to do. What could possibly be? So those are the type of things that actually drive me. That's what's pushing me. That's what's making me wake up every morning excited to do what it is that I do.
And I think you know, I'm so glad you said that. Annette, our cousin, was on my show a few shows ago, and she said kind of the same thing, right? It's like, and I'm assuming that that happens for a lot of us as we get older, but I know that it's not the same, but it's like you're driven by something bigger. Like
Mhm.
I literally every day to myself, I talk to myself like, you're not ordinary. This is not about you. Like I don't care what hell I'm going through, and it's like I remind myself that I'm being prepared, that all of this is because there's so much more. Like I see, and I've talked to you about this privately, like I see people like us coming together doing things in Africa. Like I literally have visions of those types of things. It's gonna happen no matter how frustrated I may get, right? But it's just, I think it's just really refreshing to hear other people say that, because you want to have impact and you want to leave a legacy. It has to be bigger than you.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So
Yeah.
thank you for that. I have one more question, but Amami said here in USA, in the USA, we talk about Black dollars staying within our community longer as compared to other groups. I think he was referring to what you were talking about earlier. He used to talk about, yeah. Thank you, Amami. So the last question, let's talk about the future. 5 years from now, in 2030, what is your boldest prediction for the state of financial inclusion and technology on the African continent?
Yeah. Well, 2030 is only 5 years away from now, right?
I thought about it.
No, but 2030 is the UN mandate. Everyone's talking about these sustainability and growth initiatives and what have you. And I was just talking to our friend Desmond about, like, I would love to see a report on where Africa is with some of this. But I mean, my prediction is this: financial inclusion in Africa is not just going to be about access to an account. Like, we're going to be past that. We would have solved for the identity thing, fingers crossed. And I've seen a lot of movement with the broadband issue being resolved. Right now, Google is laying down fiber optic cables around the coast of Africa.
Yes.
And I think I just read another company is actually doing it as well. So
Yes.
connectivity is going to be there by 2030. So those issues with our broadband are going to be somewhat non-existent. Now, my only fear is are we going to constantly keep catching up, because most of the countries are on 3G or LTE while we're over here on 5G, right?
Mm-hmm.
So in 2030, are they just going to be getting the 5G and then we're going to be on some millennial maximum or whatever they decide to call the next 3 iterations? Like,
Right.
that we're not constantly catching up. It would be great for us to be innovative in a way where we're actually leading the charge, and what's being put in underground or undersea.
Right. In the ocean, yeah.
It's actually an innovative and forward type technology. But anyway, so financial inclusion in Africa is not just going to be about access anymore. We would have already solved for the broadband issue. We would have already solved for the ID situation. I think that's already going to be the baseline. So what we will probably be doing is this: inclusion. We'll be able to control it, and the mobility, that mobility between the continents. I see within the 5 years the interoperability piece being solved regionally, not necessarily among all 54. So you'll see all East, and which I think is a beginning part. If the East African countries can easily solve it, because they, again, when we're talking about these 54 markets, they're different, right? But there are some similarities with West Africans. The way culturally, the way we think sometimes, the way we do business, East Africans the same way, South Africans as well, North Africans as well, right? So we can solve regionally for that interoperability. I think by 2030, that will be done. That will then start to open up us having more connectivity, more convening of how our systems interplay with themselves much better. By 2050, I don't think we would have to, if things go positive and we become the master of our fate in more countries, Africa could be something. I just pray that I'm here to see it.
So let me just say this, right? So because of Africa being the last frontier and all the projections and what we see, right? That's where like the biggest opportunity is, right? That's why the big companies are setting up Google and all that. And when you were talking about the underlying cables that they're laying, I think because I had read up on that as well, and I think they are going to make sure it's it works right well because why? Because whether this is what's really scary, whether we Africans in the diaspora in Africa are ready or not, that doesn't have anything. Africa is going to develop because there's a lot of opportunity there for the
Yeah.
world.
Yes. Yes.
So I see development. It's just again like what we we're talking about earlier. Like, is it going to be more of a partnership?
Yes. Yes.
Right.
Absolutely.
And not only that, like some of us are going to get in, on it, right? Because some people like you're ahead of the game. You've already built your foundation there and you're building, right? So because the smart companies are going to look for people like you who understand the culture, the ones that want to be sustainable, right? So to partner with you, right? So in talking about this, I do see Africa developing. It's just again whether we're going to be a partner in that development or we're going to be colonized, as you said.
Absolutely.
There's no way around it.
I will caution you in regards to like final frontier. We're not a frontier. We are, and even emerging kind of feels icky, but we are an emerging market.
Right.
The 54 markets in Africa aren't the same as what they were 5 years ago. They have leapfrogged in ways, which is why you have so many conglomerates looking at it. The GDP growth in a lot of the African countries have doubled. They've seen double-digit increases, and that's on everyone's radar. Bloomberg didn't come up with that investor guide for nothing. They know exactly what they're doing. I mean, this is not the first time that they did it. I believe that they released one years ago, but this thing just came out just last week or about a week and a half ago. We're on people's radars, and those individuals in the diaspora should definitely look to figuring out how they can go back in a way that is that can provide some necessary assistance.
Right.
And
Right. So when I said last frontier, I know that's a term that was used, but what I mean is like that's where everywhere else has been developed, right? Like that's where
Well, no, Latin America is an emerging market too.
Yeah, but they're as a whole market, I think they're a little bit. They are, overall, I think they're a little bit further. Some of them regressed and things like that, like Venezuela, some of these countries, but there's so much opportunity. You know what I'm saying? That's what I mean. Like, it's just like with China. And I used to visit China. I went to China like 3 times. And I remember I was seeing the development, right? And today, again, on Fareed, they were showing China. They were talking about energy and all of that. And I literally just remembered like, wow. And they were saying how amazing it was, like from where they came from. You know what I'm saying? And how many like millionaires, I used to read about that stuff, while it was happening, how many millionaires were created, how many people they took out of poverty, like the impact.
Talk about how China made that change, how China their economy started to grow out of nowhere.
Yes.
And it was not because of the Chinese government, it was because of the people.
Yes. You're right. It was
the people. It wasn't the government. They figured out ways to even circumvent some of the laws to say, listen, like I was Brookings, the keynote speaker was an economist that won the Nobel Prize, Peace Prize in 2024. And he talked about this. He said that no one expected China to be the ginormous economy that it is now. And that there were laws on the books that said you could not own a business that had more than 4 employees. Why? Because you would now become somewhat of a monopoly. They circumvented all of that. And they said the Chinese government just got tired. I mean, there's billions of people in China. They said the Chinese government just got tired. They were like, listen, they kind of took a step back and the economy just started growing. It is up to us in these countries for us to do better. We have to want better and do better, not to kind of
want better.
Yeah. We cannot harp on our home country, But every time election comes around, they campaign on two things: water and electricity. In 2025, those are the two things that
That's what I
a
can't.
person can come up. Yeah, and then they give out a bag of rice and they've already bought your vote. We got to do better.
That's what I'm saying. Like I can't understand those things. You know what I'm saying? Like, and I'm just gonna pray. I said that the other day about Sierra Leone, and my cousin, mommy was like, "Oh, pray this and that." What am I gonna? I mean, I'm gonna try to do what I can, but I mean, at this point, sometimes I feel like, I just have to pray because, and support people that are doing things, that are able to do things, as much as
Yeah.
possible. But I know, let's wrap up. Thank you so much. But I did want to ask you, as I asked all my guests, this has been so amazing, of course, and just so interesting. Um, do you have anything you want to leave the audience with? Like, if you could advise folks, that want to get into this business, or just want to go to Africa and do some work, add some value, anything you want to leave folks with. Because one thing I always say is that, you're doing very well, but you worked very hard, and you worked very hard to get to where you're at, right? Because a lot of times people see people like you, and it's like, oh, okay, but they don't realize all it takes, right? So any advice you can leave us with, inspiration, anything?
Absolutely. I would say that in order for, so we can't complain anymore. We really can't. We can't sit back and complain and have the defeatist type attitude that this is how the country will be. It starts with the heart and the minds. I think I said this earlier. My good friend Jalloh, who is Chief 901 in Ghana, he and I were just on a panel just last week, and he so eloquently said this: is that we have to do the hard work. Like, what is our purpose in this world? And I had great corporate American type jobs, right? I walked away from it because I woke up feeling like I need to provide value. Like, I learned so much, I've been exposed to so much, but I want to provide value. It should bother people in the morning if they don't know what their purpose is. Just sit still for a moment and try to get the answer. It may not come to you today, it may not come to you tomorrow, but understand what your purpose is. Like, the millennials have it right. If it doesn't feel good, they are not doing it, right? We come from a different generation that we've been told that we got to work hard, and if you work hard, then you'll reap the rewards. Part of that is true. But at the end of the day, those same corporate jobs, if someone was to pass away, if I was to pass away tomorrow, KPMG would have somebody, my job listing would be up before my body is cold in the ground, right?
Mhm.
So we have to be driven by more than just a nice title, our beautiful homes, nice little car. Wake up in the morning and feel like you have a purpose. Wake up in the morning and be driven and feel that, I'm contributing to this world in whatever way that looks like, right?
Mhm.
Um,
Mhm.
let us not miss this opportunity for us to be able to be on the ground and working with the people that look like us, working with our home countries, working within the continent. Because I said this earlier, no one should complain 5 years from now, 10 years from now, when the landscape looks different and the people who are calling the shots don't look like us. Don't complain.
Mhm.
The opportunity is now, right?
Mhm.
You're going to do it in so many different ways. And so that's a good segue. You talked about the book. The book will be out March of next year.
Mhm.
I'm putting the final touches in. Uh, I'm also working on an app. I actually just got accepted into an accelerator. It's
Yes.
called MVP
Congrats.
Plus. Thank you. Thank you. I'm really, really excited about it. It's called MVP Plus, and it's a crowdfunding app. Um, Especially, you will go onto this app and you will see the stories of trusted and approved small, medium entities that are looking for capital. It could be social impact funding, where you're just providing a small grant of maybe 100, 200, maybe $1,000 to help this particular company scale up or entrepreneur scale up. It could be like the 30 companies I'm working with right now that are looking for investors. And so now you're providing capital and you're getting equity into these companies. A lot of people don't know how to invest. I'm providing a vehicle that'll allow you to do that.
That's great.
I'm really excited about it just because of all the conversations that I have. People are like, oh, how can I help, Mariama? How can I help? Mariama, how can I help? What can I do? I'm really interested. I want to invest. I'm just not comfortable, or I don't know what the market looks like. Well, MVP Plus is going to be able to provide you with all of that. So,
That's great. That's great. Well, congratulations once again.
thank you.
Wow, this is great. This was very, 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 very insightful, and just and I, I love that we kind of took a deep dive into Sierra Leone a little bit. I think that was a little therapeutic for me. So thank you so much for joining us today on Conversations with Mai, and have a good night, and good night, everyone. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Bye-bye.
Good night.